let me start by saying I didn't want to be the person making this video. I wanted to be sat where you are, the other side of the screen. After all, who wants to be the person who feels able to make a comprehensive video about medical treatment in Malaysia when all they did is visited Malaysia for a few months for a bit of fun and adventure? You may well have seen this video here that I made a month or so ago when I visited a medical centre in Kuala Lumpur because I was feeling dizzy and unsteady on my feet. I had treatment, I had tests, and I had drugs that I walked away with. I'll link that at the end of this video if you want to get the full story, if medical treatment's really your thing. But I'll include some of the detail from that in this video to give a rounded view of all of the costs and what the treatment path was I went through. Also in this video, totally unrelated, but Sarah and I decided while we're in Malaysia to have a full extended health check, and that's going to form part of this video also. So I'm going to take you through the story today of umpteen number of consultations, even more tests, more drugs than I've ever had prescribed in my life, and hopefully by the end of it, a diagnosis and treatment plan. But we'll get to that. So from the moment really I arrived in Kuala Lumpur, I wasn't feeling well. As I say, dizzy spells, unsteady on my feet, and generally feeling extremely uncomfortable. And after that first video I made, if anything, my condition had worsened pretty significantly. At that time, I was getting, let's call it an attack, once every 2 days for maybe a couple of hours a day. By the time this video picks up, it's constant. From the moment I got out of bed in the morning to the moment I went to bed in the evening. At the end of this video, in addition to sharing all of the costs, I'm going to share an app that if you are traveling for a significant amount of time, you really, really need that app. It's fantastic and it's totally free. And I'll tell you what that is. So I'm going to kick this off with the health assessment that we had in Penang. So we left Kuala Lumpur and continued our travels up to Ipoh by train, made a short video there, and then we continued by train onto Penang. By the time I got there, I felt unwell. But we had this medical assessment set and we both went for the enhanced plan. And one of the reasons why I wanted that assessment was back in the UK, things weren't going so well there either. Right, I've just come out of the doctor's, and this is one of the problems about world travel really. You've got your medical professional that you go and see and you build up that relationship, but then you disappear off for months or years at a time. Well, I saw my doctor about 3 weeks ago, and although I'm on blood pressure medicine and all that kind of stuff, losartan I think, tested my blood pressure and it was very high. So they did a lot of blood work and sent me away, asked me to come back today. Come back today, still very high. Blood work all came back positive, i.e. good, but the blood pressure's high. My problem is Sarah and I are flying out of the UK in 2 days' time. Not enough time to actually do anything. There was no time for us to talk about prescription and trying different things. His concern was if we try something now and it doesn't work and you're the other side of the world, he can't monitor it. So what we need to do is when we settle somewhere for any amount of time, go there, find a medical professional and see if we can get this sorted. And obviously I'll need to do this pretty urgently. I can't hang around. So my plan was get to Malaysia, have a full health assessment, take that to a general practitioner that could help me then with my blood pressure meds and get me under some form of control. Check out this clip the morning that we went for our health assessment. If you look at my eyes, you can see I'm not well. There is a lot more going on than just needing a health assessment, as you can see. I'm on my way to the health screening just outside my apartment block, and this is much needed because what I showed you earlier, from the UK. You can see I've had concerns there, and if you look back a few videos you'll see that it's not been plain sailing since we got to Malaysia. Something tells me I am going to have some lifestyle changes at the end of this video. So we hopped into a Grab, which is like an Uber, and made our way to the hospital for the medical assessment. The hospital we chose, we did so because some very, very good friends of ours had used it and recommended it. It was a not-for-profit Chinese hospital, kind of in the centre of Penang. So we've just checked in. Sarah's doing this as well, but she's not so keen to share everything she's doing on camera, which I can relate to that. So I've gone for the enhanced package. So we're all checked in. They've asked us what we want to eat, so we've gone vegetarian, and we're waiting to be called for the first step of our tests. And then the assessment started. Just give them blood, as you can see. And been given a meal and a voucher for coffee. Next thing, they're going to tell me about my weight. This is not one I'm looking forward to, I'll be honest. And I continued the tests, going from unit to unit across the hospital. Just been tested for colour blindness, weight, height, and other stuff as well. The weight wasn't good. There's this monitor that was going up and kept showing my body fat, and it just kept going. Everything else stopped. Body fat thing kept going up. So quite happy with my height, but the rest of it not so good. On to the next phase. There was generally a porter that would take you from point A to point B, and I think I was on probably every floor of that hospital, bit by bit, going through the tests. So I've seen the ultrasound guy, I've had X-ray, I think it was X-ray imaging, and I've just seen the dietitian. That didn't go so well. She basically told me I was obese, which I guess I knew that, so I've got work to do. So, I haven't finished yet. There's still more to come. I'm paying for this as well. Then it all wrapped up and it was time for lunch. I've completed all my tests, just finished the stress test where they wire you up and put you on a treadmill. That was tough. That was really, really tough. And it's probably taken me half an hour to recover, which I'm guessing isn't good. All of my results now go to a doctor, and I've just grabbed some lunch. There's a Subway, so that was handy. Grabbed some lunch from there, and I've got to wait till 1 p.m. It's just coming up to 12 noon, and I see the doctor then, where hopefully I get all the results from the blood test and the urine test and every other test that's taken place today. One interesting thing is, those of you that know, my right shoulder got completely smashed a few years ago when I fell down the stairs. And I had imaging, I think X-ray of my chest, and after that, when I had the ultrasound guy said, your scapula, you've had surgery or issues with the scapula? Yeah. So, shows it all ties together and works out well. Not hoping for the best from these results. I saw the dietitian, and I felt she was rather negative in the way she was approaching life. And she put a pencil mark at the wrong end of obesity. If it was at the right end of obesity, I'd have thought, well, she's got some hope with her positive attitude, but I felt she was very, very negative. Now, quick kind of interjection here. When I say in that last clip about the fact that the dietitian had a very negative attitude, just please recognise that's my quirky British sense of humour. Please, no one put in the comments, Neil, you need to be taking this seriously. That's why the doctor or dietitian's telling you you're obese. I know that. It's just a bit of fun. And if you're thinking, well, you need a wake-up call, just recognise the fact this whole video has been a wake-up call. And so I visited that doctor, and not all great news. Indeed, I was obese. I could see that. But also, having the enhanced tests involved having a stress test. That's basically where you're on the running machine and they push you harder and harder on that test. I effectively failed that. And I was advised to see a cardiologist. And in the meantime, no strenuous activity. Now, I could have seen a cardiologist at this hospital, but I decided to take those results back to the cardiologist that I had in Kuala Lumpur, because I was basically under his treatment plan at that point. When I saw him, and you'll see that in the previous video, he put me on a course of meds and wanted to see me a month later. I thought all better to go and see him with the results of this full stress test so that we could come up with a solution plan, hopefully, between us. Then a couple of days later, I was back in hospital. And I want to level with you here, because what you're going to see in this next clip is a very, very unwell me. I was actually managing two things at the same time. Sarah, my wife, who I travel the world with full-time for 10 years, and if you're interested in that kind of thing, and this is the first video you've ever seen of us, you might want to consider subscribing. If you're not interested, don't subscribe, that's what I'd recommend. But she is someone that worries. So what I was telling Sarah at the time was, I'm still feeling unwell, but I was actually feeling more and more unwell as the days were going on. And I thought, I really need to go back to an ear, nose and throat doctor while in Penang to tell him that the ENT that I saw in Kuala Lumpur, what they had told me wasn't seeming to work, and is there anything that he could do for me? But I'm managing two things at the same time. Sarah's worry, I don't want her to worry unnecessarily, because that just makes things even more unhelpful for both of us really, but also needing to take control of this medical condition that I was dealing with. I'm in the third hospital in under a month. The first time was looking at this whole dizziness thing in my head. The second one, as you've just seen, is me doing a full health check. I'm back with this dizzy issue. It hasn't improved at all after the support that I got from the Sunway Hospital in Kuala Lumpur. So I'm now at the Island Hospital here in Penang, just sat outside the consultant's door for ear, nose and throat to see if we can get any joy on this. When you find out what plans we got later this year, you'll know why this is so important to get all this dizziness sorted out. So, see how we go. So, more drugs. Waiting at the pharmacy to collect 2 drugs, I think, and then to the cashier to pay for it. Again, I'll share what this cost. Hoping this gets to the bottom of it. Basically, the ear, nose and throat guy, really good. He thinks that, a few people have said in the comments actually, that it could be some form of growth, cancerous or non-cancerous growth. He's ruled that out today in the test that he's done, which is good news. He thinks it's the Eustachian tubes and a dysfunction there. So these drugs will hopefully resolve that. I've got the medication. I didn't know what I was going to get, and all I've got, hopefully this should resolve it, is I've got a spray that I've got to take twice a day. I've got another spray that I've got to take twice a day. I've got some tablets that I've got to take once a day. I've got some other tablets that I've got to take once a day at night. And I've got some other tablets I've got to take 2 a day. So, if this doesn't sort me out, nothing will. So yeah, I got all those drugs, and to be honest, I felt better already. Stupidly, in my mind, I'm thinking, I've got 5 different types of drugs here. One of these has got to fix it, so I felt better already. However, as the day went on, no improvement. And over the coming days, I felt worse and worse. From the moment I woke till the moment I went back to sleep, I felt dizzy and I felt unstable and I felt sick. I felt everything, really. And at this point, I was starting to get really concerned. I think if Sarah was telling this story, she'd be telling you at this point, I was pretty irritable. I didn't want to go out. I just wanted to stay in bed every day. But we did go out and we made a few videos, and you'll see that those are probably surrounding this video. So we did get to see Penang, but just not as much of it as I wanted. Time was going on, the drugs had no improvement at all. Then one day I thought, I've got a really good and very trustworthy friend who is actually a world travelling nomad like Sarah and I, but also she's a very highly qualified medical practitioner. So I contacted her really with a hope that she'd put my mind at rest and say, Neil, stop worrying about things. And I told her how I was feeling and the condition. And I was also telling her that I think this is my brain playing tricks with me and that probably it's my anxiety. And she was helping me with various meditation techniques to improve how I was feeling. But did she put my mind at rest? No. She highly recommended I saw a neurologist. So now I'm thinking, I've got a brain tumour, am I dying? You know, I think, you tell me, if you're in any kind of situation, does your mind go to things like that? Even though you know that the reality is highly unlikely and what you're dealing with is something pretty innocuous, are you starting to think you got cancer or a tumour? Do you think, or it's just me, innit? And so off to the neurologist I went. We're all checked in. I'll talk you through in a moment the whole check-in process, how that works, so you can work out how different that is to your country. But hoping we get some answers because we're leaving Malaysia in just 6 or 7 days and we've got some massive travel plans ahead of us. So I want to kind of get some clarity on where I am with all this stuff before we move on, not least of which our visa in Malaysia runs out in a week, so kind of need to get all this sorted, don't we? If you want an appointment, go online. You go online, you find the website for whichever hospital you're interested in, you tell them what specialism you like. Not that you like, that's only if you really are into this kind of thing, but the specialism you need, and then it will list for you all of the doctors they've got. You can click on each doctor and see the diplomas and skills that they've got, and also what languages they speak, which is obviously useful. And then you can click a button to make an appointment. You'll see their diary appear on screen. Choose the date and the time that you want, click a button, and you get confirmation through to say that you've got the appointment. Once you get to the hospital, then there's a slight, for the first time, slight check-in process where you've got to give your passport and all the basic information, photographs. Once that's done, you're then a patient of that hospital. Everything's done with the kind of meat counter tickets that you're used to getting when you go to your local supermarket. You pull a number, you go up to a counter. So you go to the check-in once you've done the initial registration, and you're told where to go. So basically all of the doctors have got a room somewhere in the hospital. You go to that room, you knock the door, let them know that you've arrived, and wait outside, and you can see a sign up that's showing you exactly where you are in the queue. So you get a queue number, and today I'm Q0. I'm right at the top of the queue. Might seem a bit chilled out. I've been told the doctor's not here for another hour, so I've got time to tell you about all of this. So you do that, and when the bell goes and your number comes up, you knock the door and you go in and you have your consultation. At the end of the consultation, you either have more work to do, such as when I was in Kuala Lumpur Hospital, they saw me in the ear, nose and throat department, and then I got a referral to have a hearing test. So they did the referral there and then, and they told me exactly where to go. You go up to that place, knock the door, tell them you've arrived, and then you're in and you're seen by that person. So on that day, I had 3 referrals, so 4 appointments back to back, and I was in the hospital for less than 2 hours. If you're only doing one, then how it all ties up at the end is basically the same, and that is you then go to the cashier window, you give in your details, and they've got all of the appointments you've had, any medication that you've been prescribed, and they pull together your final report. If you want to know how much all of this has costed, because at the moment I don't know, I'll tell you at the end of the video, because I can't tell you now because I don't know. But they cash everything up, you pay there and then, either cash or on a card, and then go to the next window. It's normally the next window along, which is the pharmacy. The pharmacy fulfills your prescription and you're free to go. That's basically the process, simple as that. So what would I say about it?
It's a lot more straightforward than what I'm used to in the UK with the NHS. Now, obviously, the NHS is effectively a free service, and I'm paying for all of this. Incidentally, seeing comments in the previous video about, oh, you shouldn't travel without insurance. I've got insurance. I'm doing all of this out of pocket because if you look at the deductible and what this actually costs, it makes a lot more sense to do it out of pocket. So if something more sinister appears out of these appointments, I've got my insurance that I can then invoke if required. But this hospital was absolutely beautiful. In fact, we've been to that non-profit hospital. That was lovely as well. Probably nicer than most hospitals that I've been to in the UK. And obviously the Sunway Medical Centre in Kuala Lumpur, a beautiful hospital. It feels like a hotel that you're sat in. So there you have it. So stick around. I'm going to have this neurological appointment now. Hopefully that's the end of all this. Well, actually, I'm going back to not to UK, to Kuala Lumpur to see the cardiologist. Then it's all done. Then I can tell you what it costs. But I'll keep you up to date with how this goes with the neurological appointment today. And then we'll round it all up at the end. Sorry, it's just turned into a bit of a long video, isn't it? And I'm rabbiting on. But if you're looking to travel the world, this is the kind of stuff you don't want to know about, you just need to know about it.
And so I paid for and collected more drugs. Again, remember, I'm going to total all this up at the end of this video.
I've just seen the neurology doctor, Dr. Lim Tian Tian. Dr. Lim Tian Tian. He is a cool guy and he's hopefully watching this video. He's tested me for stroke to see if I've had any kind of stroke, and all clear on that front. He has pointed to the fact that he thinks it is probably internal vestibule issue, which is what I've been told previously, so maybe I am just a hypochondriac. He wants me to have a brain scan, but we're getting on a train back to Kuala Lumpur tomorrow and there's no way I can change that. So he's given me a document here to contact the Sunway Medical Centre in Kuala Lumpur so that I can get a brain scan while I'm there, just to be certain.
Following day, we were on a train back to Kuala Lumpur, where I had an appointment booked with my cardiologist there to go through all of these results and the result from when I saw him a month ago and the drugs he put me on at that point. So as you can see, I'm at the counter talking to the pharmacist as she's handing over the drugs to me. I've not videoed what happened this day, even though this is probably the most active day of things that took place. And the reason for that is because I thought I've videoed about as much as anyone can video in a hospital at this point.
Did you see that? I'm going to need to get a bigger suitcase. By the way, that's not all of it, because I didn't have it all available. I've got to take prescription I've got here to a pharmacy to get everything else that I need. I'm going to wrap all this up now, and that's going to be the cost of everything, actually the process, and where I am now. This is more about the whole medical situation and process in Malaysia rather than the medical situation and process that Neil's going through, but I think it's going to be really, really useful. I didn't expect this or hope for it to be a definitive guide on what medical treatment would be like in Malaysia, but that's the way it turns out to be. So let's go wrap this up.
So I'm talking to you now about a week after that appointment with the cardiologist in Kuala Lumpur. Well, that neurology appointment I had in Penang, he did prescribe me a drug which was starting to have a bit of a helpful effect, which was a good start. So when I went in to see the cardiologist in Kuala Lumpur, I explained to him everything that he'd missed since the last time I saw him. The first good thing is he didn't rush me. He wanted to hear everything. And the more I told him, the more and more concerned he looked. And he wanted to know everything in detail. I showed him the report from the enhanced health assessment that I had in Penang. He noted himself that I'd failed the stress test. That too was a concern. And the fact that he was frowning, I thought was actually a good thing, because it meant he was taking this seriously. I explained to him as well that my visa was up in a few days' time. So anything we do, we've kind of this is it. We got to do it today. Otherwise, all of my plans are kind of on their head, because I'd have to maybe do some kind of visa run, get out of Kuala Lumpur and out of Malaysia, then come back in to revisit him. And I've got accommodation booked where we are here, for example. So if there was anything he could do to complete treatment that day, that would have been absolutely fantastic. His concern also was due to the additional blood pressure drugs that he'd prescribed since last time he saw me had no effect. My blood pressure was as bad as it was last time he saw me. And so he rose to the challenge. I'm gonna have to read this because I had quite a few tests done. So to get a full picture, I'd have to have a blood test to see if it was appropriate for me to have a coronary angiogram. That's where they fill you with dye. And the reason for that is, I think he said, looking at my health assessment, I think it was my kidney function wasn't as good as it could be. So we needed to have a blood test to see if that had improved since my health assessment. And I think the dye can impact and give you kidney disease or some, stuff like that. Then he also wanted me to have an ECG and also a heart echo test. And those are two different tests. And then to round things off, he wanted me to have a brain MRI scan. And that was through the information that he received from the neurologist in Penang. And that's a lot to have done, isn't it? And I think I might have actually forgotten a couple of bits, but when I put all this on the screen at the end, you'll see, because I'll get it all from my receipts and things, you'll see everything that I had done. The problem was, this was Saturday, and I needed all those tests. That was fine. Had it all done that day. Went from one to another, to another, to another, then returned back to the cardiologist, where he assessed everything, looked at photographs and pictures and reports so that we could have a full diagnosis and a plan going forward. And after a long consultation, he prescribed me more drugs. And as you saw a little while ago, a lot of drugs. He explained that he was concerned that there's a slight issue in my heart, which I could see myself, where it could rupture, or it looked like it's got it's kind of a weak point in my heart where it could rupture. So he said it was important that I only do light exercise, but if my blood pressure does get under control, then I can step that up and do the kind of exercise that I was discussing with him. And you'll see in a later video, in fact, what that exercise is, because we've got a really fun challenge coming up. And so let's get to the conclusion of all this. And I do apologize for this being a rather long video. So how do I feel? All of my symptoms have gone. I'm 3 days in to not having a symptom of dizziness or unsteadiness on my feet. I feel like a new man in many respects. Also, my blood pressure is virtually perfect, right on the dot perfect. I'm testing it every day, 6 times a day, in fact, testing it, and I'm seeing a steady decline, and it seems to be stabilizing in a real sweet spot. The sad thing is, I've suffered with my blood pressure for many, many years, and doctors in the UK just didn't give it the time that obviously I felt it deserved. And as such, whenever I went back to see a doctor, they'd say, oh, your blood pressure's a bit high. We're going to switch you to a different drug and we'll see you in 6 months. And then in 6 months, the same conversation would happen of, your blood pressure's a bit high. This time it might be, your blood pressure's a bit high. It might be because you're talking to me now. Let's review things in a few months. And it was always like that. And I never, ever got it. I was always in kind of pre-hypertension phase. And I felt that was probably normal. Maybe that's what you have when you're on BP drugs. A bit sad, really. And so a month or so in Malaysia, going to 5 different hospitals, got to the bottom of my problem and also fixed my blood pressure at the same time. I feel like a new man. And to be honest, I bet Sarah does too, because I've been like a bear with a sore head for the last month. So how much did all this cost? That's what you want to know. Well, break it down. I had the initial assessment in Kuala Lumpur at the Sunway Hospital. And again, as I say, I'll link that at the end of this. Then we moved on from Kuala Lumpur to Penang as my condition worsened, and I had the enhanced health assessment there, and you can see on screen everything that makes up the enhanced health assessment. After that, still not improving, I booked to see an ENT, ear, nose and throat specialist in Penang. Again, you can see those details. And also for all of these appointments, by the way, booked online and had the appointment the following day. Nice and straightforward. Next, after the advice from my friend who's a medical practitioner, I visited the neurologist at the Island Hospital in Penang. This is everything that was prescribed and details of that assessment. Then finally, the big one, the cardiologist back in Kuala Lumpur, and this is the big ticket item as well. This is everything that took place, and this is the cost, and so the grand total. There it is on the bottom of the screen. Had you guessed? Did you think it was going to be this price? Oh, I nearly said this high. I think that's pretty low. I have got medical insurance. I'm not going to put that through insurance because the complexity of doing so, and when you look at the deductibles, there's no real value in it. So this has actually helped us think about how medical insurance will be used by Sarah and I going forward. And that is basically, we're looking at it as catastrophic care. So, you know, if we're on a motorbike and we come off and we need an ambulance and we need, you know, something doing catastrophe, then we will get that dealt with and go through insurance and deal with it. Or if we need repatriation, we use Safety Wing for our insurance, is linked below. Use it if you wish to. I'm not going to recommend or not recommend, purely because I've not seen a claim come through on there that I've made myself. I can tell you that the setting up of a Safety Wing insurance policy is about as straightforward as any you'll ever have, and the price is pretty good too. And so to Malaysia, I've got to say, based on my limited experience, this is the best medical care that I've seen anywhere in the world. And so Malaysia will be on our semi-regular visit list. We'll have health assessments here. I'll probably continue to see the cardiologist here anytime I'm in Kuala Lumpur. And so to that app, it's called MediSafe. Basically, why I came up with it was I'm used to having Sarah in my ear all the time going, have you taken this med? Have you taken that med? So I thought I'll look for an online service that would do this and found an app called MediSafe. What I like about it is you can put all of your drugs in there, what the prescription is, how long you take it for, how many tablets you've got. By the way, you'll hear a lot of banging. There is a guy who lives next door to where we're staying at the moment who seems addicted to hitting things. Making videos here, I have to work around him hitting, but I'm going to just plough on through this. I do apologise. So MediSafe, you can put all of your drugs on there, together with how many you take, how many tablets you've got left, but also you can use it for tracking your blood pressure and it will nudge you when to take that. But also notes, you can create different note sections. So I've created a note section called dizziness. And anytime I think I'm getting something, I'll just put it in there to just start to build a picture. Useful thing there is when I see a doctor, I can show him it and say, this is what's happened, my condition's worsened or whatever over the last month. And I've created like 3 or 4 note areas for things that are kind of conditions I deal with from time to time. The great thing about MediSafe is it's free. So if you're traveling for any amount of time, I recommend you get that. I also recommend that if you come and stay here, you should get some headache tablets. All that banging. Now, you know that Sarah and I, we love a beer. But we decided before any of this medical stuff happened that we were going to do a challenge. And that challenge would be, could we go a month without any kind of alcohol? So just to be clear, we're the kind of people that anytime we get to a new location, we go to the local supermarket, I get 24 cans of beer, stick it on my shoulder, stick it in the fridge so I can have a beer every night. Now, we've done the challenge for the month of January. So the whole month of January, did we go without alcohol? Well, you're going to find out in the next video. Problem with that challenge is I was also suffering with dizziness and unsteadiness. So, you know, is it a really good challenge when a bloke didn't even want to drink anyway? But you're going to see what was the outcome. Has this changed our relationship with alcohol? I think it's got some interesting things to say. And also another interesting thing is Patreon. If it wasn't for our Patreons, there would be no To Go Rome. And that's absolutely true. And our Patreons know that and they know why. We have a lot of fun there. We have a monthly live stream and Sarah and I do short videos every week, which we call the To Go Rome pop-ins, where we tell you where we are, what we're doing, and share some fun stuff. Is that if that's of interest to you, then consider joining our Patreon. All the details are in the description below. But Patreons, we love you and thank you for all you do for us.